Um, so they went to the graveyard to dig up the body of Elise's 2-year-old brother. And they did it. And then they took the body in the coffin. They took the coffin to the sawmill, to the heap of meaning. And funnily enough, the old graveyard dog, Cinderella, followed them and then stayed at the sawmill too. Chapter 11. How they stared when they saw the coffin with Sorensen's Cinderella on top. The 6 of us who had been at the churchyard may well have felt like falling asleep at school that day, but we certainly weren't hanging our heads. On the contrary, the story was passed around the class and around again in an ever-increasing whisper, until Eskildsen became furious and yelled at us to be quiet. Everything went still for a moment, and then it all started off again, and Eskildsen had to holler at us one more time. It felt like an eternity before the final lesson was over, and we could set off in our different directions to the sawmill. But then, there was no end to the heroics and the events of the previous night. The churchyard plunging deeper into darkness, looming larger and more forbidding, as the story was told and told again. In the days that followed, there was no one anywhere in the town. Oh my god, dude. Like, can you hear how badly I'm fucking up right now? Every time I read, everybody's like, oh my god, don't worry, you're just way too hard on yourself. You're doing fine. I'm like, today you guys have got to know this is what it's like every time, but I don't know why I can't do it today. Fuck. It felt like an eternity before the final lesson was over, and we could finally set off in our different directions to the sawmill. But then there was no end to the heroics and the events of the previous night. The churchyard plunging deeper into darkness, looming larger and more forbidding as the story was told and told again. In the days that followed, there was no one anywhere in the town who wasn't talking about the vandalism at the churchyard. 2 gravestones had been stolen. Someone had trampled around on little Emil Jensen's grave. And Sorensen's Cinderella had disappeared. The latter event was a source of very little regret. After all, it was a disgrace having that old mongrel going about the churchyard, urinating on the headstones, and depositing stuff that was much worse, who knows where. No one suspected us. My mom did ask me about the gravel and the dirt on the carpet in my living room. Or in my room. But I just said I'd been playing with Sophie on the field behind her house, and I'd forgotten to take off my boots when I came home. And even if I did get bawled out for the boots, it was nothing compared to what would have happened if my mom had found out where I'd really been. It was Cinderella who gave us the most trouble. She refused to leave little Emil's coffin for more than a few minutes at a time. She must have thought Sorensen's remains were inside. Whatever. We were unable to let her out of the sawmill during the daytime. If anyone saw her together with one of us, they'd be sure to get suspicious about matters at the churchyard. Sophie, who lived closest to the sawmill, couldn't get away to walk Cinderella after dark. She wasn't allowed out late, and her parents were already of the opinion that she was spending too much time at the old sawmill. It was Elise who had solved the problem. It was like Elise had grown fonder of her dead baby brother after his coffin had been placed under our care. And perhaps it was Cinderella, keeping guard by the coffin, that made Elise especially fond of her. No matter the reason, Elise offered to go out to the sawmill every evening and take the dog out for air. It was mid-September now, and dark by 8:30. So there was just enough time for her to be back home before bedtime. Her parents didn't care much one way or the other if she stayed out late, Elise explained. Her parents didn't much care one way or the other if she stayed out late, Elise explained, and looked as if she didn't know if that was good or bad. There's one other thing, she added. We stared at her, mouths open wide. With all our nerves about the matter at the churchyard, we'd forgotten that it was now Elise's turn to choose the next thing, to be going on the heap of meaning. Leonard, thank you for 5 months. Ursula Marie's hair. I looked at Ursula Marie, who had immediately brought her hand up to her thick blue braids, and now opened her mouth in a protest she knew was futile. I've got some scissors, Hussein announced, laughing. He held up his Swiss Army knife and pulled out the scissors. I'll do the cutting, said Elise. They're my scissors, I'll do it, Hussein insisted. And they agreed on doing half each. Blue, bluer, bluest. Ursula Marie sat quite still and didn't say a word as they cut, but the tears rolled down her cheeks. And it was like the blue of her hair reflected in her lips, which she gnawed until they bled. I looked the other way so as to not cry too. Cutting off Ursula Marie's hair was worse than cutting off Samson's. Without her hair, Ursula Marie would no longer be Ursula Marie. with her 6 blue braids. Until she bled, she chewed her lips until they bled. They didn't cut her hair until she bled. That's impossible. Without her hair, Ursula Marie would no longer be Ursula Marie with her 6 blue braids. Which meant that she would no longer be Ursula Marie at all. I wondered whether that was the reason the 6 blue braids were part of the meaning, but I didn't care to say it out loud. Or leave it unspoken. Ursula Marie was my friend. Even if she was no longer... Oh, God. Ursula Marie was my friend. Even if she no longer was Ursula Marie with her 6 blue braids. Peerless and all her own. First, Elise cut off 1 braid. Then Hussein cut off another. It was hard work. The scissors were blunt, and Ursula Marie's hair was thick. It took them 20 minutes to get through all 6. By that time, Ursula Marie looked like someone who had gotten lost on her way to the asylum. The severed braids were placed in a pile on top of the heap of meaning. Blue, bluer, bluest. Ursula Marie sat for a long time, looking at her braids. There were no longer tears on her cheeks. Instead, her eyes were glowing with rage. She turned calmly to Hussein, and in a gentle voice, her teeth only moderately clenched, said, "Your prayer mat." Okay, we're done. Thanks, everybody.